G'day. After another 2 magnificent wins here in Austin for Max Verstappen, he's now a real threat to take out his 5th World Drivers' Championship. Of course, he's not favourite, but he's on a charge, and if anyone can do it, it's this man. Max has closed the gap to the leader of the World Drivers' Championship by 64 points in just 4 events. That's never happened before. Are the wheels falling off at McLaren? Well, not yet, but they can see the danger signs. They came away from the sprint race with no points, and after today's Max win, he's now just 26 behind Lando and 40 points behind Oscar. Now, if he wins all remaining 5 feature races, plus the 2 sprint races, and I don't doubt that that's possible, he would end up in front of Lando no matter where Lando finished in those races, but would still be 3 points behind Oscar if Oscar came second in every one of those races. But Oscar hasn't been on the podium for 3 races, so he'd need to bounce back to his early season form. Of course, McLaren were mighty unlucky on Saturday to have both of their cars wiped out during that sprint race. I was shooting from a photo window on the outside of the track at Turn 1 and got some amazing pictures of cars off the ground. You don't see that very often in Formula 1. And it was funny because I wasn't watching for drivers coming back on scooters, but I heard the crowd go crazy on the hill behind me, and that's when I realised that Lando was on the back of one of those scooters, and I figured that Oscar probably wasn't too far away, and it proved correct. So what's happened at Red Bull? All of this performance boost came after Christian left the team. Now, Laurent Mekies says he's not taking any credit for it, but in reality, he's downplaying things. He's instigated some big changes, and it started in Monza. They used to run the engines in both of their cars on Fridays at around 80%. That meant they started every weekend on the back foot. Now, Laurent's an engineer, not a businessman like Christian, so he had the team run the engines at 100% on Fridays, starting in Monza, and it's been a huge factor in their jump in performance. Perhaps Red Bull under Christian became just too comfortable, too complacent. One thing's for sure, Max speaks very highly of Laurent Mekies, and when you see the two in the garage talking, they're probably talking engineering stuff because Laurent is an engineer. That wasn't the case with Christian. One thing to note, no one has ever come from that far back to win a championship. Indeed, the previous biggest turnaround also involved Max Verstappen when he came from 46 points down after the Melbourne race in 2022 to win that year's Drivers' Championship, and by a big margin. I think the whole thing's quite juicy, and I have no doubt that F1 is thrilled with this Red Bull return to form. I mentioned Christian Horner earlier on, so what is he up to at the moment? Well, of course, you've probably seen various stories about him contacting all the teams, keen to get back into the sport, and indeed he does have some magnificent experience. But I did see that the other night there was a dinner that Mohammed bin Sulayem, the FIA president, had with Zach Brown, and Mohammed, I believe, had arranged a surprise guest, and it was Christian Horner. I can only imagine what that dinner was like and what was discussed. It would be fascinating to be a fly on the wall for that one. This picture is from the press conference after the race. Lando slumped on the couch. He was spent. And as he was walking in, somebody said, "Would you like a drink?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll have a Coke or a Sprite or a Fanta or a Monster Energy drink, something with sugar in it. Just something to give him a bump." They handed him a can of Sprite, and then somebody said, "Look, the director doesn't want you having that can visible." So he said, "Well, I can't rehydrate?" He ended up putting it between his legs and just drinking when somebody else was answering a question. But that has come up a couple of times in press conferences. In fact, all 3 of the drivers had drinks with logos on them, and while it's not an official rule, it's just a request that the director makes. I also want to go back to Carlos's podium yesterday. I don't know whether you watched the presentation afterwards, but it was hilarious. The crowd went absolutely wild, and at some point they died down and Carlos would turn and wave and thank them, and then they all arc up again. And this happened, I think, 3 or 4 times. There's no doubt the Texans love Carlos Sainz. What did you think of those trophies? Big bull heads with horns. I think they look pretty good. Interested to see your comments below. For the first time since Sochi in Russia, we now see roller coasters popping up in the background of our photos. That's because there's an amusement park being built at the track, and this roller coaster was being tested over the weekend, and Kimi Antonelli got to have a free go on it. Still on the subject of photographs, have a look at this shot here. It's shot with a wide-angle lens, but the trick is that you have to get your lens through the fence, and if you use a 15 to 35mm lens, it's too big. So have a look at what my friend Mario has to do. He takes the lens off the camera, he then pushes it up in front of the fence, pushes the back of the lens through the holes in the fence, and then screws his camera on. Luckily for me, I had a small lens that fitted through, but if you have a big lens, that is the secret. And the resultant pics, quite lovely, but only at the right time. You've got to wait for that shadow to come all the way across the track. That happens at about 4:37 p.m. Let's talk some other pictures here. A lovely shot of Lando's dad congratulating Max after his win in the sprint race yesterday. Celebrity-wise, pictures of Matthew McConaughey. Joe Rogan was with us, the Crown Prince of Bahrain. Renee Zellweger. Shabuzi made quite an impact. Jay Leno and the Ferrari Pope popped by. At some stage yesterday, I came out of the media centre and I was about to head up the paddock, and I see these two big security cars scream past me. And I think, right, somebody important's getting out of these cars. So I wait till the main car stops, grab my camera, and then an F1 person comes running over. No photos, no photos, no photos. Oh, okay, who can this be? And a couple got out and walked inside this building here. It wasn't until later that I realised it was Adele. Now, Adele has come to a race before. It was Vegas, and we were told on that occasion, no photos of her, I think it was her son, which we're fine with. But this time was no photos of Adele. She ended up, I believe, going to McLaren as their guest and spent some time in their garage. Now, at the risk of firing up a few people, of course, we got rid of grid girls going back to, 2018. Haven't had them because they weren't deemed to be right. But, of course, we did have the Houston cheerleaders today at the track in outfits very similar to what those grid girls used to wear. Did you see the drivers' parade? Have a look at these vehicles. I've not seen anything like it. I can tell you that of the 20 drivers, 2 of them decided to actually drive those cars. I'll tell you which 2 a little bit later on in this video. Good result for Charles Leclerc today on the podium, unlike his teammate, who was only a shade away in 4th, but Lewis has now competed in 19 races since his Ferrari debut without a feature race podium. That is the longest time ever without a top 3 finish of any Ferrari driver in Formula One history. That is a big statistic. Now, did any of you see a lot of the Red Bull crew wearing denim jeans today? It's not something they typically do. But the jeans in question were customised with Austin R19 and RBR on the back pocket. And this was in honour of their ex-owner, Dietrich Mateschitz, who died back in October 2022. And he would often wear jeans to the track. In fact, they did this before on October the 22nd, 2023, at this very race, everybody wearing jeans in honour of Dietrich. Of course, there's a big Western theme here in Texas, and Liam Lawson got into the swing with cowboy hats most days, if not all, including 2 on one day. And who looked the best in their local Western outfits? Well, I give that prize to Pierre Gasly in this stunning outfit that he wore on Friday. In fact, George's girlfriend Carmen came in a very similarly styled jacket, which I thought might have been sourced locally in Austin, but she said no, she got that in England. I'm filming this on race day morning, and the wind is playing havoc. See this ESPN signage behind me? That's having to be revisited after the wind wrecked that. And a number of teams knew about the wind today, so they set their cars up differently yesterday for today's windy conditions. One of my biggest posts this weekend was the news that Apple is taking over the broadcast rights for the US next year, and ESPN are out. I didn't realise it was such a big story until I saw all your comments. But a lot of people are saying that they'll actually save money because at the moment they need an Apple subscription at $100 and then $85 a year for F1 TV Pro. But they'll save that $85 next year. And if you had F1 TV Premium, you'll save $135. So I guess that's a good thing, isn't it? And what is Apple paying for the rights? Well, it's around $150 million, which is about 60 more than what ESPN was stumping up. It was announced too this weekend that the Austin Grand Prix will be extended until 2035. That is a big extension, and it is a huge race. It sits in 3rd place on the attendance records for 2024, and I imagine it'll be similar this year, behind Britain and Australia. Personally, I quite love the feeling of listening to the US national anthem as I walk up that hill to turn 1 with that huge crowd, probably, 25,000, 30,000 people on that hill, most of them general admission ticket holders, sensing a great moment just around the corner. When I look at these pictures with every seat filled, and all those cars on the track, the sense of anticipation is quite magnificent. I just wish they had more hotel rooms in this city because I can tell you it is a very expensive place to stay if you want to be in the heart of Austin. Last night for about 3 hours I was quite concerned, disappointed because I lost my laptop. I left it in one of the shuttle buses that goes from here to the car park. Well, I was so happy when one of the crew said that they'd located it in the back of those shuttles. So I have been reunited with that, and I thank the staff at the track. As I do the staff at the canteen, we have some of the best food going around here, and it's fresh stuff, which for us is pretty important. So thank you to the crew in the canteen. And this is the media canteen, and for breakfast this morning for me, it will be an egg and cheese sandwich. Going back to Thursday, this was the outfit Oscar Piastri wore to the track. He's very casual, Oscar. I love that about him. And then the next day I see Mark Webber in this. They're like twins, because Mark is Oscar's coach. And the two drivers that drove their own vehicles, George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. Now before I go, could you please hit the like button? And for those unsubscribed, remedy that situation. Thank you for watching.
And stay passionate.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.